So if I wanted, or I asked you guys, what is 3 multiplied by 3, you guys could go across until you found, and made a little table or a square and found out what 3 times 3 is, and you find that it's 9. Okay, so 9, that would be the amount of little squares that you would need to fill up a 3 by 3 grid. Okay, so the number across the top, or the row, and the number down the side makes up a square or a rectangle, depending on what you're multiplying, and tells you how much area you have filled in. Okay, so if I took what 1 times 2 is, this isn't going to be a square, but it's going to make a rectangle model with a height of 1 and a base of 2, and 1 times 2 is this number, so you get 2. So 2 of those squares would fill it in. We're going to use this model, and hopefully it's going to help us model monomials multiplied by different polynomials, okay? So the first question that we have is I'm going to ask you guys to model 2D multiplied by 3D. And I want you to use this multiplication table. So in one side of the multiplication table, I want you to draw me what 2D looks like. Well, 1D is just a rectangle. So if I have 2D, I just have 2 rectangles. What would go across the top?
3D.
Yeah, 3D. So I'm just going to draw 3 rectangles across the top. And what I'm going to do is, the goal is, if I can multiply these, it's going to give me the area model, and that will represent the solution. So we're going to draw this out, and I have 3D across the top. So just like you would take this multiplication, if you wanted to know what 1 times 1 is, you get 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 3 is 3. So we're going to do the same. If I take a D tile and multiply it by a D tile, its height is going to be D, and its base is D. If I fill it in, what tile does that make? What tile is that?
X squared.
An x squared, but in our sense, in terms of the variable we're using, what do we call it? Yeah, d squared. Okay, so if I do the same thing, multiply d, so that's going to give me my height, and my base, d, I'm going to get a d squared tile. So do the same thing, d times this d tile. I'm going to get d by d, which is d squared. What's the bottom row going to look like in this? Same. Good, so fill it in. Now inside, this shows us what our solution is. So what are the tiles now that we have, and what solution does it represent?
6D squared.
Good, so this, or the solution is, for 2D multiplied by 3D, I get 6D squared. Okay, so I've given you a second example here. 3x multiplied by 2x minus 1. What I want you guys to do is I want you to draw out your multiplication grid. Okay, take your 3x and draw it along the side. 2x minus 2, draw it across the top, and see if you can model what the solution is.